The Three Investigators in The Dead Man's Riddle. Read for you by Brandon Reese Taylor. Chapter 1. Dingo Town's Challenge. It was an hour before dinner on a Wednesday afternoon in Rocky Beach, California. Bob Andrews, the records and research man of the Three Investigators, was in his room writing up the trio's latest case, a minor affair of finding Mrs. Hester's lost diamond ring. From outside came the sounds of neighborhood children playing in the spring sunshine. A car door banged close by. Bob's father had arrived home from work. A few moments later, Mr. Andrews came into Bob's room, grinning. He carried a long piece of paper. "How would you and your detective friends like to find a fortune?" Mr. Andrews said. "And keep it all." "Gosh, Dad," the blond boy said. "You mean someone lost a fortune, and if we find it, we can keep it?" "It isn't lost," Mr. Andrews said. "It's hidden." "Gee, it can't be much of a fortune if someone's giving it away, unless he's crazy, maybe." "I don't know what kind of fortune it is, but I think crazy is the right word, all right." Mr. Andrews laughed, then rubbed his chin. "Still, I see your Mr. Hitchcock is involved, so maybe it's not so crazy. Here, Bob, you can read it." Mr. Andrews held out the long sheet of paper. It was a galley proof from the newspaper on which Mr. Andrews worked. "We're printing the story tomorrow," he explained to Bob. "But I thought you boys might like an advanced look, eh?" Bob took the galley and read. "Wealthy eccentric leaves challenge, find his fortune and keep it. Crazy, will his proof of mental illness, declares family lawyers. The late recluse and mystery man, Marcus Dingo Town, who died last Sunday in Rocky Beach, had apparently left his entire fortune to anyone who can find it. The unexpected development came yesterday when Mr. Town's longtime friend, John Jack Dillon, filed a surprise will for probate. Mr. Town, a mysterious eccentric in Rocky Beach for 20 years, always wore shabby clothes and lived in a ramshackle old house, but was widely thought to be a millionaire. Mr. Roger Callow, representing Mr. Town for the Rocky Beach law firm of Sink and Waters, declared the secret will to be proof that Mr. Town was no longer in his right mind. We know a legitimate will exists that leaves everything to his daughter-in-law and grandson, Mr. Callow stated. The surprise will, written in longhand, was witnessed by Mr. Dillon and another friend, Mrs. Sadie Jingle. The article then printed the entire will, which Bob read with grinning excitement. "Wow! Can I show this to Pete and Jupe, Dad? There's time before dinner." Mr. Andrews laughed and nodded. Bob dashed to the phone to call his friends, then hurried to his bike. He pedalled rapidly to the Jones salvage yard, a fabulous junkyard owned by Jupiter Jones's aunt and uncle. Not wishing to run into Aunt Mathilda Jones, a formidable woman who always wanted to put the boys to work, Bob proceeded past the junkyard's main gate and stopped at the far corner. Here was Green Gate 1, one of the three investigators' private entrances to the yard. Bob pushed up two loose, green-painted boards and stepped directly into Jupe's outdoor workshop. When he found no one there, Bob dropped his bike and pushed aside an iron grating that seemed to lean casually against Jupiter's workbench. Behind it was the mouth of a large, galvanized pipe. This was Tunnel 2, which led under piles of junk to the secret headquarters of the three investigators. Headquarters was a damaged old house trailing with which Uncle Titus Jones had given to Jupiter when he found he couldn't sell it. Except for the tools in Jupiter's workshop, headquarters was equipped with everything the investigators needed for their work. An office desk, telephone, tape recorder, dark room, miniature laboratory, and assorted pieces of detective equipment, mostly rebuilt from junk. Outside, the boys had piled so much junk around the trailer that no one could see it anymore, and by now everyone had forgotten it was there. Bob crawled through Tunnel 2, which ended underneath headquarters, and entered the trail through a trap door. Jupiter and Pete were waiting. "What's this about a will records?" Jupiter Jones asked. The stocky first investigator looked like round-faced young owl, especially when he was thinking, which was most of the time. He was the brains of the trio, and liked to prove it. Will Schmill, Pete Crimshaw said. What about the fortune? The second investigator was taller and stronger than his buddies, big, athletic, and the most happy-go-lucky of the trio. He leaned forward eagerly as Bob handed the galley to Jupiter, who read the will aloud. I, Marcus Town, being of a lot sounder mind than most men, especially my relatives and their friends, and one who made his pile by hard work and quick brains, see no reason to leave it all to shiftless, greedy, stupid, and otherwise useless people who liked my money more than they like me. Therefore, in this my last will and testament, I bequest to my daughter-in-law, my grandson, my niece, and my nephew the sum of $1 each. The remainder of my estate I give without reservations to anyone who can find my treasure. As an aid for the more intelligent, if there are any, I leave this set of riddles. Solve them and find the loot. Where the wild dog lives, the bottle and stopper shows the way to the billabong. Above the apples and pears all alone, the lady from Bristol rides from a friend. At the 10th ball of twine, you and me see our handsome mug again. Ahead. One man's victim is another's darling. Follow the nose to the place where men buy their trouble and strive. Get out if you can. In the posh queen's old Ned, be bright and natural, and the prize is yours. Who'd have thought the old man had so much money in him? Roll the dice and the swag is yours. Executors will be John Dillon, who likes me, Sink and Waters, who like money, Alfred Hitchcock, who likes mysteries. Jupiter, who had once been a child actor on TV, finished dramatically and beamed at the others. Wow, Pete said at last. A dead man's riddle. Is that a real will, Jupe, or just a crazy joke? Oh, I assume it's real, said Jupe. I mean, if you solve the riddles, I assume you will find Mr. Town's fortune, but I don't know if the will is legal. If the person who found the treasure would be allowed to keep it. But even if the will is legal, I imagine the family will go to court and claim that the old man was crazed and his will is invalid. Still, and his eyes sparkled, I wonder what he hid, and where. The one thing Jupiter could never resist was a challenge to his brains, a puzzle of any kind. Maybe Mr. Hitchcock knows it, if it's legal, Bob said. An exciting thought, Jupiter agreed. He reached for the telephone and dialed Mr. Hitchcock's number. The famous director was still at his office. Jupiter explained why he was calling. Thunderation! The great movie-maker's voice roared from the loudspeaker Jupiter had rigged up so that they could all listen to a phone conversation at once. Must I be badgered by everyone? That crazy old bandit had no right to name me. I barely knew the old blackguard. Yes, sir, Jupiter said nervously. But is it legal? The will, I mean, if we found what he hid. He advised me on one film. One, Mr. Hitchcock grumbled, and paused. Legal? Yes, confound you. It's quite legal, and quite crazy. Sure to be broken in court. Waste your own time if you like, Jupiter Jones, but don't waste mine. Bang! Jupiter winced as the great director hung up. Well, Pete said, it was a nice idea. Just a crazy old man, Bob said. The family will get the money after all. But don't you see, said Jupe excitedly, even if the court says the treasure belongs to the family, no one knows where the treasure is. The riddles still have to be solved. The ringing telephone made them all jump. Jupiter grabbed it. Confound it, Mr. Hitchcock's voice growled once more. Perhaps there is a case for you young rascals. I have just been told that the family is concerned. The will is sure to be broken, but that may take time, and the family is worried. I have suggested your services. Worried, sir? Jupe exclaimed. Worried about... Enough. The towns may or may not call you. Now, I want no further part of this nonsense. Again the irate movie-maker hung up, but this time the boys grinned at each other. A new case! They agreed to meet at headquarters the next day before school. Jupe would spend the evening in headquarters, near the phone.